Hello, I'm Michael Diaz, producer of the Mime Radio Show. We hope you will enjoy our final episode of Season 2. As you know, we are committed to bringing you the highest quality mime interviews available on the dark web. However, technology doesn't always cooperate. In this episode, our esteemed guest, Robert Shields, was experiencing some serious video lag throughout the interview, which will result in a unique experience. Without further ado, please enjoy this episode of the Mime Radio Show, quirks and all.
Hello and welcome to the Mime Radio Show. I'm Karen Hoyer.
And I'm James Donlin. And Karen, we have an amazing guest today. He's a giant of 20th century mime. And if he was out of the mountains, he would still be a giant in the 21st century. And I'm talking about the man below with the crazy eyes, the man, Robert Shields, who I've known since 1973. 1973, he and I met. In fact, I first met him. He strode into my studio during a rehearsal unannounced. He walked across the floor with that street walk and he stuck his hand out and he said, "Hi, I'm Robert Shields." And we talked. And over the years, we've collaborated and we've been friends and we've talked, and we have the cave where we go to talk about all the mimes in the world and so forth. Robert, if you don't know, like I say, is literally a giant of 20th century mime. He had a network CBS TV show called Shields and Yarnell with his partner Lorraine. They were an impact on the American cultural landscape. Before that, he was Entertainer of the Year in Las Vegas. And he performed there for several years, and he opened many shows as well as having his own show, but he opened shows for stars. He went to China with Bob Hope on goodwill tours. The man is the father of, most likely, of the moonwalk and the robot. And he has such a crazy, interesting story to tell. And I'm sure that all of you out there, wherever you are going to find this really fascinating. So without further ado, let's welcome Robert Shields. Bravo.
Robert, we're so glad that you're here to join us on the Mime Radio Show. You have had such an incredible influence on the mime world, and we'd just like to know, how did it all get started?
Well, I didn't actually talk until I was 5 years old. I had a speech impediment. I stuttered till I was 18. So silence was always my best friend. And when I was about 6 years old, I started dancing for the company. And to Joe Finger's Car, it was ragtime music. And the minute went on, it was like 12th Street Rag. I'm like 5 years old, man, dancing. And all of a sudden, I'm charging a cover. I'm playing weddings, bar mitzvahs. I was the star. My mother put me to bed every night. She goes, "Listen, someday your name's going to be in lights, but tomorrow you're doing a bar mitzvah for Joey. So be there. They're going to pay you actually $5. And I started doing weddings, bar mitzvahs. Then I started getting a little older.
This is in LA, right? LA, right?
Yeah, LA. Yeah, LA. And it wasn't so cute anymore. Seeing a 10-year-old dance. So they weren't as impressed. So there was a long lull with my show business career. You know. Then in high school, they needed a guy in the dance class, because it was like 40 girls, and they would, and I went, I've always been able to dance, and I'm not afraid to use my arms, like I could, and so I went, God, I'll do that. And it was a great gig. It was great. It was a real trip because I was the only guy, and so all the shows were based around me, and that was a real great thing for me, being in high school with all those women, because I was a horny little kid, and I didn't have to take laps. I didn't have to be in the gym clothes and the whole thing. I went to dance class, and then I realized that this is great. I'm going to take home cooking with the girls. I went instead of woodshop. I wish I would have taken woodshop, but I took home ed. So we made cakes and pies and smoked joints in the back of the room. It was great. Remember, it was North Hollywood High. We were a little progressive there.
So let me just say for our audience that Robert lives in Arizona. He's up in the mountains. So we've jury-rigged the system. So he's talking on a phone and it's not synchronized with his image sometimes. So
I'm sorry.
So Robert, maybe if you stay a little stiller at times, you won't jump around. It freezes sometimes. But anyway.
Also, James, every time you talk, we can't hear Robert. So don't talk so much.
But this is
Robert, did you have gymnastics training too? Because you did in your on your TV show, you did some incredible flips and round-offs and bouncing off the floor.
Yeah, I was I took gymnastics and ballet and but basically I'm self-taught and I taught myself how to do that stuff. I'm trying to go real slow now so you can actually hear what I'm saying.
Yeah, he's talking, but his mouth's not moving. It's so funny.
Well, it's too bad. We got a little.
Yeah.
It's okay. When did you actually start with mime?
I started with mime. I went to see Marcel Marceau with a bunch of friends, and I realized that wow, I think I'm a mime. So in the parking lot, I was starting to do stuff, and that's when I first started doing that. When I saw him, I think I was 14 years old.
What, Robert?
What is that?
Oh, Rob, we'll get into that later. Robert is a fine artist, and I want to ask you when you were performing, before you went right on stage, what was in your mind? The moment right before you would go on stage in front of an audience, what would be going through your mind?
Well, if you look at the entire show, you really can get very seriously nervous. But what I would do during my shows is I would just think about the first thing I have to do. The first thing I have to do is the film starts of me in the streets. I was the first street monkey in San Francisco, as you know. And then the second thing happens, and that's all I'm involved with is the second thing. And then the next thing happens, and I'm just involved with that. But I don't think about anything what's in my mind. I think about right there in the present moment of each moment of the show.
So you go from moment to moment. You don't think too far ahead or at all.
I can't do that because it's just too much, because the show's 2 hours. It's too complex, and if I start thinking about all the things, it would drive me nuts.
During those years when you were the word iconic, the mime of San Francisco in Union Square, did you have a different approach before you would start your performance on that corner of Gary and what is it, Gary and Sutter, is it?
Gary and Stockton. Yes,
Stockton.
I did. I parked about 3 blocks away.
Yeah.
On the way to the square, I would dive into restaurants, theaters, all kinds of old age homes. I would perform, jump around, come out of trash cans, crawl out windows, climb buildings, hook onto cars. So by the time I got to the square, I was completely warmed up and I was a silent movie character. Now, are you following any of that?
Oh yeah. Now I have to say, audience, that I witnessed Robert grabbing on. In fact, you can see it on a video on YouTube. He used to grab onto the sides of cars, and with his leather shoes would be pulled along the street. He would even stop the traffic sometimes.
Yeah, I got arrested 5 times.
So were there cops that you were friendly with, or was there
the cops really hated me because I made fun of them. I would imitate the cops blatantly and then hand them a joint, and and they would arrest me. They got so upset they would arrest me, and then it would end up in the paper.
When we watch the old videos of you in the Union Square, the people are very docile. They're very amused and they're welcoming. Do you think that could happen now?
I think that if the performer is really magical and trained and really has his shit together, yeah, I think it could. But if it's just some stupid mime with bad makeup and bad technique, I don't think so.
I know that you put an emphasis on your training, that like particularly when you were working on your TV show, you said we're working all day long, and it really shows, because the technique that you have, both you and Lorene, and also your dance technique. I mean, it's like at such a high caliber, and that's the problem, is that people don't emphasize the technique.
They don't. They put on the makeup, they look real pretty, they wear a little striped shirt with a beret, and they pull on a rope, and they smile, and they mug, and they just think life is dandy, and they don't realize that they're killing a great art form. I think there should be what? Go on.
I was going to say, who were your influences? Like this great art form you're mentioning, like who influenced you?
Buster Keaton was my main influence.
Yeah.
I loved it. There was a thing in LA called the Silent Movie Theater. It was on Fairfax.
Yeah. I
basically lived there. I just lived there. I just studied that. That's really where I learned my chops. Is just watching Buster Keaton. I love Chaplin. I love Chaplin too. You know, and I even liked Harry Langdon. But Buster Keaton was my favorite.
Well, I can see the Buster Keaton influence in you, because I've always known you as a very athletic performer. Like your leaping ability is outstanding, and you would leap in the air and slam down. And Buster Keaton was such an agile athlete himself, and you've got the same energy as he would have had. Yeah.
I was just going to say, not only that, but the thing that Buster Keaton was so good at was the take. And you have that, besides your manic energy, you also have this stillness where you can take the time for the take.
Yeah.
Talk to us about, talking about stillness, talk to us about your ability to, I'm sure you've been asked this 1,000 times, but your ability to be still as the robot. I mean, what kind of training goes into that, or what kind of concentration? I know you've talked about don't blink, and it's the key and stuff like that. Talk to us about that.
The blinking, the eyes are everything. The eyes are everything. They are the magical part. If you're going to be a mannequin or puppet, you can't blink.
And this was you said you used to have small figures when you were a kid, right? And you would study the faces.
Yes, I collected dolls and puppets and all kinds of things to yes.
Right.
They were my friends. People say, "Where'd you learn?" I learned a lot of stuff from puppets and inanimate objects, old tin toys and dolls. In fact, my art, I still kind of make this one of my pieces here. Isn't that nice?
Didn't you you used to collect, didn't you used to collect like fantastical toys and those kinds of things?
Yeah, I still do. I have tons of toys and masks, and I have a big mask collection like you do.
Yeah.
Very good. Yeah, I still do that. I collect microphones.
Really?
Well, that went into it. Yes.
I think that's a really good joke. A mime who collects microphones. That's a good joke.
Yes.
Oh, it's like the Mime Radio show. So Robert, when you were influenced by people like Buster Keaton, Charlie Chaplin, but once you went to San Francisco, did you have role models, or did you just go off on your own journeys?
I'm basically self-taught. I went to a few mime classes, and I walked in and walked out. I went to one in LA with Richmond Shepard. Richmond's a dear friend. And I walked in and went, ugh. I learned more from taking ballet and doing just fencing and
Yeah, explain what you mean by Like, I know you went to Marceau School for a couple of weeks, but what did you find that you was missing, that what you needed that you couldn't find in these kinds of schools?
I couldn't find humor. See, everything with me always, even though I do pathetic, things with pathos,
right?
Everything comes down to humor with me. You know what I mean? It wasn't fun. It was just this boring still life technique. And I train myself in front of a mirror for 5 hours a day. And that's how I got my technique. You know?
Yeah.
I just didn't want to stand there with a bunch of pompous. And Marcel Marceau's school to me was the same thing. I'm sorry, mimes, if I'm telling you the truth. But it was just like everybody was just so full of themselves.
Yeah.
You know, I just didn't like it. I didn't like it. You know, remember, I flunked the 3rd grade. I stuttered toes. You know, I'm a punk. You know, it's just I had to make it myself, man. You know,
that famous mime that you do, the biker. You know, that's a little bit of your own character there, isn't it?
Mm-hmm.
Well, that is. But I mean, the biker sketch came from junior high. They said, I took a drama class in junior high, and they went, "We want you to do something that you like, someone you like," and that's when I came up with that, because I love watching bikers. I like to, you know, I wasn't a biker. I never even drove a motorcycle, but I liked the way they looked. I liked their swagger. You know, they're like, "Hey man, what's you know?" They're like cartoon characters, you know.
Yeah, what, like, you know, for example, in the biker piece, you have the bit about zipping all the zippers up, you know.
Yeah.
What in your process would help you to discover that kind of humor in terms of like exaggerating a characteristic, or is it just observation?
Well, it starts with a little bit of zipping, and all of a sudden, you know, you're on stage and the audience is laughing, and then you go, "Oh, I'll zip some more," and then I'll zip my face, and I'll get out of my body, and I'll zip my arm off, and I'll zip, and then the last zipper, of course, is my fly, and that's open. And I go, and I look at the audience, I go, "Uh-oh."
So you're I remember once you told me years ago, you said, "I want the stupidest, most guy in the last row to understand what I'm doing," which meant to me that your audience, you know, you were an entertainer and you were playing for this audience and you were giving them what they want, in a sense. Is that true or not?
It is. I want to make things simple enough so everybody understands it. People would come to the show and always say, you know, "My wife took me, I hate mime, but I was thoroughly entertained," because I don't really consider myself a mime. I consider myself an entertainer and a comedian. And unfortunately, I had to, you know, I'm doing pantomime, but, you know, and I got typecast as a mime. But if you ever see the Shields and Yarno show or my own one-man show, it's really entertainment. It's the same as your show. That's why we're friends. I mean, I'm a big fan of yours. You know, you're a great clown and a great mime.
Did anybody try to change you? Did anybody? I remember overhearing one conversation with some noted people back, you know, 30 years ago, saying, "Robert, why are you doing this?" I mean, what happened there? People were trying to change your course.
We performed at the International Mime Festival in La Crosse, Wisconsin.
Right.
We were invited to come out there, and we had some notoriety. I had some notoriety in San Francisco, but not much. And
well, you got the key to the city. You had a lot of notoriety.
Yeah, the audience was just the audience wasn't mimes; they were just people. Anyway, all the different mimes performed, but when we got up there and did Robots Eating Breakfast and all the stuff that we were working on and everything, we completely flattened the place. We flattened the room. We killed, just like Sinatra says, "Just kill it, kill it." And that's where I come from. I come from like going out there. It's warfare, man. It's like you go out there and get those laughs. Go out there and kill. I'm not going to go out there and do my art because it's boring. You know, it's to me, okay?
So explain that dynamic between audience and artist. You know, like you say, you go out there to kill. So it seems like it's almost like you're in the are you in the arena with a wild animal and you're trying to tame them and guide them? What's going on there?
Okay, so I peel the banana, I eat the banana, I slowly turn into a gorilla. And then the minute I turn into the gorilla, I am on fire. It might as well be like you lit my body with gasoline. I am a full-on gorilla doing the whole thing with the cage, jumping, turning, flipping. And then finally I open the bars of the cage and I stick my head out there and I climb out in the audience and I realize it's way better in the cage, close the cage, do a front round-off, front flip, boom, do a bow, boom, blackout. Okay? That's killing. It's like rock and roll.
So it's a trance. It's a form of a heightened trance state, wouldn't you say?
Yeah, I mean, I opened for the Rolling Stones with that kind of stuff. I mean, this is not.
Yeah.
This is hardcore mime. It's just like hardcore clowning and mime, and it wasn't docile.
Yeah.
So, Robert, I'm like really interested in the creative process, especially between partners, and I have this theory about you and Lorene. Did you become partners because you had the same haircut? You look so much alike, and that's really charming.
Okay, well, I knew that there was already a single mime, and I could never compete with that whole thing with Marcel Marceau.
Uh-huh.
But I thought that if I came up with a man and a woman, and we looked alike, and we did sketches that were relationship driven, that might be very commercial.
Mm-hmm.
So I auditioned women, and some of them really had great technique. We had to both kind of look like me, similar, and also when I met Yarnell, I was doing a TV show, and she was a dancer on the show. Now, Lorene Yarnell was a dancer on the Elvis special. She was partners with Peter Gennaro. She got a scholarship with Margin Gower Champion at age 5. She was a dancer on Shindig. She was a dancer on Carol Burnett, Red Skelton, all those shows. She's been in 2 movies. She was a Bob Fosse dancer. She was the top of the heap. She was considered by Gene Kelly one of the finest female tap dancers. He said the only other tap dancer that's as good as her or better is Eleanor Powell. So wow. I picked the right one. It wasn't because of the haircut. It was because this gal was trained up the gazooza. She was a ballet trained, hardcore gymnastic dancer who could do anything. And she was in 7 Brides and 7 Brothers. She was in lots and lots of productions. She was in Sweet Charity. I mean, this is a real professional dancer.
So she challenged you. She challenged you, right?
She's 7 years older than me. She fell in love with me. She's never seen mime before. Back in those days, nobody knew what mime was. I was hired for a Sid and Marty Krofft TV special, and she was one of the dancers. And we fell in love, man. And, I took her to San Francisco, and she just left her career. She had a booming career. I mean, she lived in a beautiful house. She just moved in with me.
But she was...
Chita Rivera. Do you know who Chita Rivera is?
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Chita Rivera was her best friend. She goes, "What are you doing? He's like 19 years old." She goes, "Listen, the worst case scenario, I want to learn what he does." So I trained her. And she basically trained me, too. She trained me to warm up and to wear knee pads. And she made sure that before a show, I warmed up for at least 45 minutes with her.
Did she take the punk out of you? Did she take a little bit of the punk out of you?
She took it all out of me. Yeah.
I think though the thing that's so amazing about her is that she's so funny. I mean, she's not like most dancers that always have to be pretty. She threw her body around just as much as you did. The things that she did when she would flip her leg up over somebody's neck, she's hilarious.
Well, she's very blessed. She's got gigantic eyes and an overbite. And Barbara Streisand looked at her and said, Barbara Streisand was a friend. And she looked at it and she goes, "Boy, this is the body that Liza wishes she had." She looked like Liza Minnelli, basically.
Yeah,
but she had a body like Bo Derek. It was amazing. She was an amazing artist, and I'm so sad that she's gone because I love her so much.
Yeah.
She was a great, 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 great clown. She was so good. I played straight for her because she had the face.
Yeah.
I'd write the material, but I had to write it in a way where she got the laughs and I played straight because she's so fucking funny,
Yeah, she was fantastic.
How did you recover from that loss in terms of, it was your professional life and your private life? How did you recover professionally? Let's keep it at that.
We'd probably still be touring, which probably wouldn't be a good idea for my health because I don't think you reach a certain age, it's not good to jump around on stage anymore,
Yeah.
But, I really, it really hit me hard. But the way she passed was very interesting. She passed where she was watching TV, where she lives in Norway, and she said, "I'm not feeling well," to her husband, and she got up and she just crossed over to the other side.
Wow.
So I thought, her and I were extremely spiritual. We believe in a lot of different things, but we basically have the same views. And I just thought, God, way to go, Lorraine. I mean, if you're going to go, that's it.
Huh.
She was 67 years old at the time.
Amazing.
Oh.
Is that the spiritual quality that you're speaking of? Is that one of the reasons you moved to the northern Arizona, to the Sedona area?
Yeah. Being in LA and having a name and hanging out with all kinds of celebrities and going to parties all the time. And, it was really exciting, but it's really bad for the soul for me. It's too many diversions. So I started doing a lot of Zen meditation and, learning a lot of stuff. And so in 1986, I moved to Sedona, and I was there for 34 years. And now I live about 20 minutes outside of it, way up in the mountains.
Yeah.
And I think it's really good for me. I mean, today I had, coffee with a bunch of old guys, and they don't know. Nobody knows who I am or what I did or anything. It's just, the ego is exhibiting godless overtures. And, when you get famous, you can't help but be egotistical because you're so spoiled.
Yeah.
And I'm sorry I feel that way about mimes. It's just that, I just feel like it's.
Wait, what is that way? You haven't expressed that feeling.
I feel that mimes are cliche, most of them. I look at the stuff. I want them to be great. I look at the international mimes, and I was, let's see if this my God is beautiful looking, this person. And I look at the piece, I'm like, really?
What's the key?
I'm walking. I open the door. I take a drink.
It's just activities. What's the key? What should be present? What's your feeling?
Yeah, if you were going to critique, what advice would you give to lift the level of the art form?
I would say you need to write the story and keep it really simple and move it. Act like your audience is already bored. You got to get to the point. You got to get to the beginning. You got to get to the middle, and you got to get to the end. A good sketch should be about 2.5 minutes long. And then of course, once you have them in the middle of the show, then you can do an 8-minute piece because they love you and they're going to go on with this journey. But that's just what I feel.
Did you ever, Robert? Did you ever contemplate doing a full-length? Continuous show, not full of sketches? Did you ever
I've written some shows like that.
Yeah.
But I never really pursued it because I just did what I did. I would put everything into a new piece. And sometimes the piece lasted 7 minutes and sometimes it lasted 2 minutes.
Well, it seems to me you're burning fire within you, like when you were describing the kind of trance you were in with the gorilla, like that's you, that fire that's just exploding in all parts. So that fire can only go on so long, and then it loses its impact. So I think you're right to stay with the short pieces,
But
I would do the gorilla, and then after the gorilla, I would do maybe a marionette piece, which wasn't so physical, So I would pace myself, but
But you also didn't you write a full-length show that I think was on television about, I don't remember the title of it, Toys?
Yeah, Toys in the Town. That won an Emmy, and that was the full piece. I've written a lot of full pieces for television. I did a lot of specials in Germany and Japan. I did a lot of touring in Japan. I did a lot of touring in Taiwan. I did a big show in Taiwan. I performed in Denmark with the Queen of Denmark. I did her 50th birthday party, and I did a whole piece for her with her. So I've done a lot of stuff like that. I did The Sorcerer's Apprentice with Zawa, the famous conductor. So there's been a lot of things like that I've done. I mean, if you look at my resume, it goes on and on and on. So there's so many things that have happened. But as far as when I'm doing my own show on stage, it's basically the things that I've honed and perfected and like they're my little babies, my songs, my routine.
So what's the difference of for writing for television and writing for your live shows? Is it mostly this briefness?
Well, television is a whole different animal. I used to coach Marcel Marceau on television.
Really?
I used to say, we were very close. Especially when I became famous, we were really close there because he came to my house. He was really, I was in the club. So when he was on Carson, he did Johnny Carson a lot, just like I did. We always scored big on there, and he never did because he would do life, maturity, old age, and death.
That's like fun.
I go, man, you need to just sit in the chair and just do little pieces. Don't get up and perform.
Yeah.
What do you mean? I think it's a very important piece. Life, maturity, old age is beautiful. It's magnificent. I think the audience will love it. I go, yeah, they'll love it on stage, dude, but don't do that because it's TV. These are blue collar people. They don't know that it's boring to them. Boring? What do you mean? What do you mean boring? I go, look.
That's a great imitation, by the way. You've nailed Marceau. That's a great.
Oh, thank you, man. I think maybe you're right. I think maybe I do the apple. Yeah, do the apple with the worm. I do. You know what I mean? Yes. Do the food. Eat food. Wait. Do what you do, but don't do anything long.
Yeah. You're right. Yeah.
Yes.
It reminds me of I remember you know who Philippe Petit is, the guy that walked between the World Trade Center buildings. The Ringling Brothers hired him after that event back there in the 80s or when was it, 70s, 80s? No, mid 70s. And he would do his act in the circus all dressed in black with classical music, and it just didn't fit with the showbiz world.
TV is a whole different animal.
Yeah.
Mime on TV doesn't work. That's why we dressed it up and put costumes on. Like robots eating breakfast, and all the stuff we did. We were in sets, So
do you have is there a favorite kind of audience that you like to work for, or is it they're all the same? What's your feeling on that?
Everyone loves Laurel and Hardy. It's like people are people. It's the same. It's the same same thing to me. Every audience is. I think in Japan. It was magnificent in Japan because I could really slow down and do more poetic work.
Really? So it's more haiku and more delicate and more precise.
Yeah. My shows in Japan, I did my one-man show in Japan for 6 years. I toured every year. I started doing Japanese folk tales. I would take their fairy tales and turn them around like Rush Mataro and all the...
Oh, I never heard that story from you. That makes sense that the Japanese culture would like your work. I think there's some of that, the cleanliness of the line, the purity of the emotion, the passion, the ritual. You have all that in your work.
I didn't have to work so hard. I worked more with grace, and I wasn't sitting there going, I'm going to kill. Remember. And most mimes, they don't get this opportunity, but, headlining in Las Vegas, for years and years, doing 2 shows a night.
Yeah. With
a 120-piece orchestra behind you, and we're doing tangos and all this crazy stuff. It's hardcore, man. There's no room for that kind of stuff. We had one piece at the end of the show which was called Life, and we walk through the whole cycle of life as little babies, and we do the whole thing. But basically, when you're playing those kind of places, you're playing 3,000-4,000 seat theaters and stuff. It has to be a lot of energy.
Did Marceau ever see you perform in Las Vegas, or he never went?
He never did.
Yeah.
He never did. But I got a scholarship to his school. I was one of the few that got a scholarship to his school because he saw me do the robot.
Right.
And he never saw that before. And so I lived at his house, and that was really an incredible experience being with him all the time.
Mm-hmm.
One time I was with him, and we were supposed to have dinner, and there was a woman who he wanted to go out with, and I go, hey man, we're supposed to get together for dinner. He goes, I can't. What do you think I am, a priest? A priest? I have this beautiful woman. I'm going to make love to her. He was quite the ladies' man.
Yeah, he was. Yeah.
People always thought this guy was lighting his loafers, but after every show, he had a different chick in each town. Even when I was with him in Japan, he had all these Japanese women hanging over him.
Wow.
You know, it was amazing. He was quite the guy. He spoke like 5 languages.
What do you think Marceau's legacy is?
I think he's one of the greatest mimes in the world. I mean, he was. I saw him in his prime when he was just so brilliant. I mean, his pieces are just so. If you see him live when he was younger, nobody could touch him. He was so magical.
It's unfortunate that for example, in the United States, that the art of mime has become sometimes a bad joke, or it's like it's only a street performer or only a birthday mime and so forth. It's unfortunate that the art that Marceau had wasn't, didn't live on particularly. What's your theory on that?
It also has to do with the fact that the live performance is what was so amazing with him, that was so moving. Even looking at films of him, it doesn't quite carry. He was really beautiful in a live performance.
Exactly. And he felt that by performing all over the world as much as he did, that everyone would know who he was. But unfortunately, they didn't, because he really only performed in the theaters. But everyone knows who he is, and everyone loved his show who saw it. But most people never would go to a Marcel Marceau concert. I mean, it just wouldn't. The guy who owns a gas station wouldn't go. It was a certain type of person, I believe. Yeah. And a lot of people were dragged there by their wives. And also, it was a 2-hour show, and it was as he got older, it's tough, because it's a hard thing to carry 2 hours when you're older like that.
Oh yeah. What would you say? What was the one thing you might have learned from watching him? After all these years that stayed with you? Was there anything that inspired you that he added to that menu that you have that you can offer?
Well, he was inspired by the same people I was inspired.
Okay, yeah.
I was inspired by Keaton. He was inspired by Chaplin. So if you really look at Marceau and his expressions and his takes, they're very Chaplin-esque. He really, he's like a stage version of Chaplin. If you think Bip was very much geared after Chaplin.
Mm-hmm.
Jesse Eisenberg came to visit me recently. He played Marcel Marceau in the PBS special, and he wanted to meet me because he had to study mime for 6 months, and he really liked my stuff. And he went out of his way to come here to my house, and we hung out. And I said, "So what do you think about doing this movie? That you've done, Resistance?" He goes, "I do not want you to see it. I just want to meet you, but I don't want you to see it, because I did a terrible job as a mime, and I haven't seen it." He told me not to see it.
I saw it.
But, yeah. And he said, Jesse is just the way he is in real life. He is he's an absolute sweetheart. He's not pretentious on any level, but he felt that the director of the film didn't really get everything right, and he didn't either. He thought that even though it was a success, it's not his proudest work.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I'm sure that must have been very not a
well,
great
how could
experience.
anybody portray like somebody like Pavarotti, or you know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Like what a challenge.
I mean, just a hand, just a hand gesture.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
If you don't know what you're doing, if you're not trained like we are,
Yeah, and even so, you're also at the mercy of the director and the film and the cameraman, and not actually capturing what you're doing.
Yeah, but it all comes down to the performance. I mean, if the performance is good, they could cut around it. They could take this out. They could add that.
Yeah.
They could do a lot, and that's what they did. They did a lot of cutaways. That's what he said. It's just when he starts to do something, they cut away.
Yeah.
So
it's frustrating.
really, he doesn't have the body of a mime.
Yeah.
He doesn't have. We're all pulled up and you know, it's an interesting thing. I mean, people don't realize how trained we really are.
Yeah,
right, exactly. Robert, I have a question for you. Did you get a package in the mail?
Yes, I did. I've been waiting for you to tell me to open this.
Okay, here we go.
Oh, wow. Wow, it's that time. It's that time for the gift.
Oh, gift, look at this.
I forgot to ask you that.
The Mime Museum. A box of screws that could fill out a Robert performing Robert Shields in the corner of Gary and Stockton. Oh, Mime fans collected hundreds of these Mime screws back in the day. 2 frozen are now on display in the Mime Museum, and the rest we are returning to Mr. Shields. That's very funny. I love that. A box full of nothing. That's like the Dalai Lama would love this. I'll have one with everything.
It's all the little screws that fell out of you as you were running around as the robot. We collected.
I love that. I'll keep that forever. Mwah. Thank you so much.
Yeah, you're welcome.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah. You guys are great. You know, I've been eating so much fiber, I've been passing wicker.
Wow.
So I have a question now. You have this whole nother career as a visual artist and all sorts of sculptures, and that I'm really curious, how does all that manic energy of performing live on stage get turned into a visual artist, which is kind of a solo, quiet, in your studio type of attitude?
Well, before I was doing any of this stuff, I always was an illustrator and a painter. I used to illustrate for different card companies, and I just loved drawing and sculpting. I was a teacher's assistant in ceramics. I'm a ceramicist. And I really get off on doing art, and you know, I make all kinds of different things. I mean, I do sculptures and metal art, and my stuff's on my website.
Mm-hmm. You can work every day, can't you? You can work every day for hours, can't you?
Yeah, I work today. I mean, here's a moon. Here's a moon I just made. Isn't that pretty?
Yeah. Mm-hmm. You know, unfortunately, the image, your voice is ahead of what we're seeing on the camera.
Oh, okay.
So I'm going to have to wait a moment for that image to come up, and it's not there yet. And it's like there's a good 10-minute lapse here. Here it comes. Yeah. Here it comes.
Oh, there it is. Oh, now we can see it.
Now we're seeing it. Yeah.
It is lovely.
Yeah.
That's so really your visual art was a through line at the same time of your performing. You've always been following your visual art career too, right?
That's beautiful too. Yeah. Now we're seeing the clown. Yeah. There's a big lapse in the time between voice and image.
I had my first show in San Francisco with all my ceramic castles. I made really detailed ceramic castles, and when I was working in the street, a gallery in San Francisco decided to do my first show when I was 21 years old, and it was quite wonderful for me.
What are the similarities of the visual art and the performance art that is it the same brain in some ways?
Well, you know, when you're doing mime, you draw things out.
That's right.
You draw, everything's drawn. And it's the same kind of thing. Like, Chaplin was a great painter. Marcel Marceau was a great artist. Red Skelton paints clowns. I feel that, most mimes, clowns, they probably are very artistic in other ways.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, a lot of them do draw. Like I know Dimitri drew, and Marceau had all his paintings. A lot of similar. I was a gifted drawer when I was a kid. It's because you sculpt. You're right. You sculpt space.
I think that's true too. I mean, that was what I thought my career was going to be as a visual artist, and then I thought, well, I could do all this physical things, and then when I can no longer move, I could continue with the visual art.
Yeah. What, Robert? Do you miss anything about the street all those years ago when you were performing back in the 70s?
I'm really not the kind of person that misses things.
Yeah, you don't look back, huh? Yeah.
Yeah, I don't really miss things. I don't really go there. I mean,
What would you have taken from that period of time when you were a young guy into the more mature performer, a few years later or years later?
I would have taken the energy.
The energy.
And the fact that I could jump off of a traffic signal and roll and never get hurt. I would throw myself off mountains.
Yeah.
I would dress up as a scarecrow. I'd get a scarecrow costume and actually toss myself off a mountain and roll down the mountain and bounce and bounce. And I learned how to fall and throw myself off things. I would throw myself off cars and trucks and just rolled with it and, you know, climb buildings and, you know, I had really good elevation. Yeah. I was very close with Baryshnikov, and he told me that my elevation was that of Nijinsky. I was great, you know, because I would jump very high. I don't know. Some people can just go high. Yeah, I could jump too. I'm a good jumper. There you go. See? Yeah. I love working with you, man. Yeah. You know, even to the point, you know, your street experience, like, you know, the things you learned to do, but you were even married in Union Square at one point to Lorene, right? I mean, there was kind of a consummation of that period of your life where you were like you were representing, like Herb Cain was your supporter and all kinds of things like that, right? Yeah. It was, you know, when we got married, it made front page of the Chronicle. Right. That was a great time, you know, and did the money, like right after the Union Square, was that when you went to Vegas, basically? How did that transition happen? Well, we were in San Francisco and we made it as far as we could in San Francisco. Yeah. We couldn't go any further. And Lorene had a lot of friends that lived in LA, and they said we should live there because we're good enough to try and break into show business in LA. And that's what we did. We moved to LA. Yeah. We pounded the pavement. We lived in someone's basement. And within a year, we started getting TV shows. And, you know, Tony Basma saw us. And she was putting together a show for, she's a choreographer. And she was putting together a show for Vegas, and she put us in the show. And Merv Griffin went to the show and said, I want that young couple on the show tomorrow. I want to devote the whole show to them. And he came out and said, I found someone, a young couple who I've never seen anything like this. They do things I've never seen before. I am so amazed, and I want you to I'm going to tell you who they are, and we did the whole show. And what that did was it springboarded us to meet different people like Steve Bender, who was a big director in LA. He directed the Elvis specials and Barry Manilow specials, and he said to me, what do you want to do? Because I can't believe what I'm seeing here. I go, I want to have a variety show. I believe that, you know, I used to get really upset with variety shows. I went, you know what, man? They just talk. Nobody does any physical stuff, you know? Yeah, talking heads. Yeah. You're just talking heads. What if we actually were? Like when we did the Muppet Show, Jim Henson said, you know, the greatest thing about working with Shields Yarnell is they're Muppets. I mean, you guys are Muppets. You know, we were like the Muppets. And the nice thing about doing the Muppet Show was if you don't like who you're working with, you can wipe the floor with them. Yeah. So we started doing shows and getting notoriety, and all of a sudden, out of nowhere, Steve Bender became our manager, and he's directing the Mac Davis show. He put us on there as regulars. We had a team of people who we worked with, and then from there, we went on as regulars on the Sonny and Cher show. We ended up, at the end of our career, we were on 1,000 national TV shows and commercials and shows, all national shows all over the world, too, like Germany and, you know, Switzerland, stuff like that. It was a great career. What would you have done anything differently looking back? Or you say you don't look back, but was there anything you would have done a little differently, or maybe? Well, I'm sure there's a lot of things I would have done differently. Yeah. You know, I would have invested in Amazon, maybe. I don't know. Tell us. Go ahead. You were saying. I mean, there's always stuff you do differently. Yeah. You know, there's always stuff you do differently. But the fact that I was able to become so well known was a great thing for me, for my life. It still is. When people find out who I am, they get all excited because, they watch the show when they're young, and
Right.
it touched a lot of memories. It's exciting to see that still.
Yeah.
Tell us a little bit about the film there's like a documentary film, and lots of young people on that little trailer clip are saying, "Oh, you influenced my life so much." It's really a great testimonial. But what's going on with the film?
Well, that documentary film is about 2 years away from making. It's all filmed, but they're editing. And the guy had some health problems, but it's what happened was all these young kids started doing the robot, and a lot of them became break dancers and stuff. And I was their influence.
Mm-hmm.
So just like Michael Jackson, he came to my house, when he was a kid, and I taught him the robot and isolation moves. And I was friends with Prince, and these guys they were a lot younger. Michael was 15 when he came to my house, and he was my friend for years. And then that thing, Dancing Machine, that's actually our moves, my robot moves. And so it's just a phenomenon that the robot became part of popular culture, and I had a little say in it. I influenced a lot of the young dancers.
Was that your favorite? Was the robot your favorite thing to do, or is that just because it played well? Or do you have what would have been your favorite?
The robot was my favorite. It was my.
You enjoyed doing that. You really enjoyed sincerely doing that.
Well, I started that in sideshows and circuses when I was out of high school. I was Robbie the Robot, and it was in sideshows, and I would get crowds, and I'd bring the crowds in, and I realized that. I realized then I could not blink, and I would put makeup on my hands, and I'd spray my hands with hairspray, so my hands were, everything was like, very perfect. People would look at me and go, "That's not real," and the whole goal was not being real, was being fake, and was the main thing I did. And by doing the robot and by being still for so long, I think it was the technique of. The hardcore technique of mime was easier because it was just another stage of isolation.
Yeah. What would have been your second favorite thing to do? What other aspects of performance did you enjoy besides the robot? Like the leaps or the slamming down on the floor, or I
think the comedy. The comedy is something that I really love. I just love making people laugh. I love hearing laughter. When I was the director of clowns for Ringling Brothers, I told all those clowns that they have to stop talking, and I want them, each one of them, to do at least a minute without any words, and not one of them could do it. One guy dropped his pants and was wearing big red shorts with hearts on. That was very funny, but that was only a second. I go, you're going to have to zip the lip and understand that a good clown is a good mime, and a good mime is a good clown. A great mime is a great clown, and a great clown is a great mime. It's the same thing. If you're just a mime without being a clown, that's sad. That's just, oh God, I don't want to go to that show. But if you're saying that he's a mime and he's also a clown, I want to see that.
Yeah, I agree with you. That's my philosophy too. Yeah,
that's what you are. That's why we're friends. I mean, you're a great clown, and of course, you're a great mime. You know the technique, and once you learn the technique, you fucking throw it away. You don't want to actually see people. You don't want to. The worst thing in the world is to actually see a mime do his technique.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah, storytelling, comedy. Yeah.
Oh God. Yeah, right. It's you learn the technique and you toss it.
So, what would be your advice for a young person that's interested in mime today? So they don't just become, like flash in the pan kind of thing. Where can they go to learn? Where would they learn? Or is it more of a private, thing in the jungle with a maestro? What is it,
I would say the most important thing for a young person is do not listen to any of your comments on Facebook, because everyone's going to tell you how great you are. Everyone's going to tell you how brilliant you are. Everyone's going to tell you how lovely you are. Everyone's going to tell you how dope you are. Everyone's going to tell you how unbelievable you are, and it's all bullshit. when I knew that I was good was when Red Skelton told me that I was one of the great clowns. Red Skelton said that. And then I knew. I didn't believe anybody until I heard it from an absolute pro. So when someone who you really respect tells you that, then you should know that, wow, I'm onto something. So I think social media is devastating to young performers because I don't see them doing and putting in the long hours.
Yeah.
And I would suggest don't post anything on Facebook until it's soup.
Mm-hmm.
Until it's what? Soup? What did you say?
It's not soup yet.
Oh, yeah. I get it. Yeah, that's true. But where does a young person learn to do this? That seems to be, because there is an interest in mime that's resurging now. You know, I've been talking to several artists, and especially young people are becoming interested in this art form. And I'm just wondering what's their step? I mean, because as you and I know, there aren't a lot of teachers out there that we trust. So what do they do? You know,
well, it's the same step I did. I mean, you see stuff you like and you go, wow, I like that.
But how do we get them?
You know, when I saw Buster Keaton and I used to hang out at the movie theater, I mean, it triggered me. So, I mean, they'll get to it. They just have to find their own way.
But how do we get them to embrace the hard work and the discipline and the attack? You know, to me, you're an attacking artist. I've said that. You know, like, meaning that you take the meal and you devour it. You know, how do we get them to do that?
Well, first of all, I'm an Aries with a Capricorn rising and a Scorpio moon. I mean, it all also depends on who you are and what you are. You know, I mean, they could be a Pisces with a Pisces moon and a Pisces rising. Who knows? And that means they're docile and they'll do mime and someone will hurt their feelings and they'll go home. You know, I mean, I used to go to coffee houses and stuff, and I would say to the guy, "Hey, man, just let me up there for a minute and let me tear down this audience." You have to be aggressive and you have to be pushy, and people in show business who make it usually are that way. Unfortunately, you know, I hate to say it, but, you know, nobody just gets there from just being, you know, that's my approach. I only know my approach. You're a teacher. You know, you teach this stuff. I don't.
Why don't you teach? Tell us why you don't teach.
I don't teach because every time I teach, I've done master classes. I have to show them what I'm doing, and to get their interest, I have to really, it's a lot of work. I have to really turn myself inside out.
Yeah.
So
No,
really go,
you know, but
wow.
what's interesting though, is you know, you and I, 12 years ago, we did that festival in Santa Barbara where we worked with some high school kids.
Yeah.
I have some old tape I'll show you of you and I working with them, and you're a good teacher. Actually, your personality became more generous, and I don't mean you're not generous, but I'm just saying you were very open.
I'm very generous when I'm teaching. The problem is it's just so much work, and I love doing art so much.
Yeah.
I don't really, you know, I've been asked so many times to do conventions and workshops and all this stuff, especially teaching the robot the right way and timing and pathos and stuff like that. But I just don't like leaving my house. I just love being here, making art. It's just fun.
What's the future of mime? What's the future of mime in the world today in these pandemic times or whatever crazy times we're in? What's going to happen?
Out of sad times, great artists appear. So,
True.
So someone's coming up now who's maybe 7 years old, who is getting inspired by what we're saying and is going to start doing something like we've never seen before. It always happens, you know. I mean,
and what's your feeling on? I know you've talked to me about this before. What's your feeling on, you know, the time's well spent, and then there comes a point where you kind of hang it up? Like, when does someone know to do that? Do you think?
Okay, so in 2009, I did a concert. I did 28 shows, hour-and-a-half show. And at the end of the show, I couldn't walk. So I went to my chiropractor, and she said, you know, you have 60-year-old knees. You're going to be doing this by the time you're 70. You're going to be in a wheelchair. So for me, that was the time just go, oh, well, I just can't go on stage and not do what I do. I can't help it.
Yeah.
You know, I'm going to break out in some shit. You know what I mean? I can't help it. There's an audience there. you know?
And that was an easy transition for you to hang it up, so to speak?
Yeah, it was an easy transition because I've already had an art career. Remember, I was, you know, I had a pretty good art company, and I still do. And I, you know, so I could slide right into that, you know.
It's actually a wonderful thing to hear about the idea of your artistic soul keeps moving on to the next thing, and that just because you can no longer throw yourself across the stage, you've got these other outlets for your artistic soul.
Do you approach your art similar as you would have approached your performance? Does it depend on the audience, so to speak, or the buyer? I mean, how do you approach?
Well, yeah, kind of.
Yeah.
You know, I make a lot of commercial art. This is just stuff I have in my house that's just around me right now.
Yeah. Robert, how many hours a night do you sleep?
I go to bed about 9. I wake up at 5.
Oh, wow. So you get your sleep.
Yeah.
That's
I take
good.
a marijuana cookie, half of one, before I go to sleep.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But it's if you're you must be like creating all day long. You have so many things.
I mean, my pants. I mean, I'm right. You can see my pants are all. Well, you can't see, but my pants are full of paint. My shoes are full of paint.
Yeah.
When I'm done here, I got about 20 orders I got to do in the next 3 days.
What's
I have a website. www.robertshields.com.
Yeah.
SHIELDS, and then, you know, it's free shipping, and so I have I get about 10 orders a day. Boy.
Yeah. We'll put your information on the website when we post this interview.
Yeah.
What, Robert, talk to me about your legacy. How do you want people to remember you?
I just think we're dust in the wind, you know. I mean, I don't really.
Yeah.
I don't think of anything like that.
Yeah, cool.
I don't think of anything like that.
Yeah.
People are always talking about legacy, and I can't believe I did what I did and was such a loser. I mean, nobody wanted to play with me, you know. Flunked the third grade. Can you imagine how it was when I was I couldn't spell. I mean, it was, we don't want them, you take them. The spelling like a,
yeah.
You know,
I remember I was in the. They put me.
One of the things, Robert, one of the things that's so charming about your performing is your relationship to the audience. Is little clips of you doing when the audience would throw out a suggestion, and then you would improv a physical piece. And your relationship with the audience is so gracious and so friendly. I mean, you talk about being, hard-driven and aggressive in terms of pursuing your career, but you have a very kind and gracious attitude towards your audience, which is lovely.
Well, I would have Robert in the back alley with me anytime. I mean, the guy can be gracious, but I would trust you to cover my back at any time. So we could run together.
Well, my bark is worse than my bite.
Yeah.
I'm one of these people, when I go see a show on stage, I'm watching it like, okay, what's the first thing that he does? Look, you blew that. It could be so magical. It could be so magical. You walk out all the way to stage to the microphone. On the way to the microphone, what happens?
Yeah.
What happens?
What's the before the
You know
before?
what I mean? Yeah. I mean, why are you just going to walk all the way to the microphone? Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Already you're like, oh my God. So every single thing on the stage to me is sacred.
Yeah, everything counts.
And, I look at shows like that. It doesn't matter if it's a high school play, whatever. If all of a sudden you see something, you go, what's the very first thing that happens?
Yeah.
And then what's the next moment after that? So I'm always dissecting theater,
Yeah, I do.
I'll watch a movie for 10 minutes, 15 minutes, and then, turn it off,
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it's interesting. I was going to say that you were talking about some of your limitations that others thought you had when you were a kid. Like I remember they put me in the third reading group in elementary school. They thought I was stupid, and then I would draw something, and they'd think I copied it from somewhere. I remember that really bugged me. Like, that's not yours. You didn't draw that. Like, geez. So.
Yeah. Some of these mimes are quite brilliant. you know, they're very smart. They're very smart people. They have a degree in physics, and, you know, there's all kinds of them. I mean, I don't really hang out with mimes, so I don't really know. I'd rather hang out with degenerates than hang out with mimes. I'm just kidding, of course.
Yeah. What's your favorite place you've performed? Where's the favorite place you've been?
Well, I performed for Prince Rainier and Princess Grace in a command performance. Wow. That was pretty exciting in Monaco.
Uh-huh.
I performed on stages all over the world.
What piece did you do for the Prince and Princess? What did you do? You remember?
Well, in Monaco, they have a automaton museum, and it's all these French automatons, these robotic animated steampunk things that are worth $100,000 each. They're about 30 inches high. They're made out of canvas and glass eyes, and they do like their moves are like they blink and they do things and they play violins. There's a Perrault, he smokes a cigarette, you know. Yeah. And I did a routine where I was visiting the museum, and I would be, because Prince Rainier owns that place. So I did a lot of puppets and animation. Yeah. And things like that. Right. Yeah. With all, of course, the rest of the stuff that we do, our classic routines. Yeah. You know. What's the future of mime? I think I asked you that a moment ago, but where do you think this is all going? If people like you and me, if you and me stop being present, you know, at some day, like what's going to be what's happening in the next 50 years with the art of mime? Well, what's its salvation? Will it die? Will it come back? You know, it's been around for centuries, but I think it's always going to be there. I mean, Conan O'Brien does mime on TV. Stephen Colbert does. Oh, Colbert! I wonder where he studied, because he definitely does. He went to theatrical school. He learned space work. You know, he does stuff. So what he's doing, he definitely does mime. He hands stuff off the frame, you know, and and the other guy too, Conan. Yeah. So I don't ever think it's going to go away, because it's basic storytelling. I just wish it didn't have the frame around it that it has. Why does every mime have to wear a freaking beret with stripes and a striped shirt? And you know, that's what we did back in the day. Why do they all have to dress the same and be the same? And why do they all have a red rose? What's with that shit? What's with it's like, change the costume, change the look. Yeah. Why not wear a suit and a tie? You know, why don't you just get a normal person doing it? What's your feeling about the hip hop world now? Because some of the moves the hip hoppers do is mime derivative, but what's the limitation or the potential for that? The limitation with the hip hoppers, I believe, and I've talked to them about this, is there's no story content. Yeah. You know, they're all doing these great things, and some of them, the ones who get the story content are the ones who have full blown shows in Vegas. Mm-hmm. You know, like the Jabberwockers and all those kind of guys. Yeah. You know, they're doing great work. The Asian hip hoppers really understand choreography and working together as a unit and telling stories. Yeah. But I see a lot of these guys just doing the same stuff, and they're doing the tut thing and all that stuff, and it's all about the technique and not about the beginning, middle, and end, the show. Tell me a story, take me on a journey. Yeah. Tempo,
I think one of the things that this pandemic time is kind of teaching us is that people really want to see live performances again. And we're like eager to be back in the theater and actually see people perform. And some of the more experimental mime groups and physical theater groups that are creating work, we don't get to see them now because the theaters aren't open, but once they do, and we're out of this Zoom space and back in live theater, I think that'll be quite a relief.
I agree. But I don't know how long we're going to be in this space. It could be a long time, you know. Yeah. That's true. Unfortunately. Yeah. Because everything's changing. The government's changing. The way they want us to be is changing. It's sad.
Robert, yeah. What do you want to be when you grow up?
I never want to grow up.
Yes. Thank you so much for being a part of this interview. It's been great talking to you.
Yeah, Robert. Thanks for doing this.
Thanks, you guys.
It's been an adventure. Yeah, it's quite an adventure. So, ladies and gentlemen, that was Robert Shields, I would say the foremost mime of the 20th century. Maybe Marceau gets the first place just because of visibility.
But he's he's quite a phenomenon, and we're so happy that you are a part of our show, Robert. Thank you.
Yeah. Thanks, Robert.
Well, thanks for inviting me, and God bless you guys. Thank you so much.
Yeah. So that's it, ladies and gentlemen. So, adios.
Please like and subscribe, and check out our website, mimeradioshow.com.